Hi friends, Mindy here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am working on week 13 of the Full Deck Challenge, which is hosted by Shauna at Shanuki Art. If you do not know what that challenge is, I would suggest you go over to her channel and check out her videos on this. But I'm working on this week 13's prompts of crazy colors and black mark making. And so I'm starting out my little mini collage here. I'm obviously working on another project life card. If you've seen me do these in the past, that's the substrate that I'm using for this challenge. And I'm adding these beautiful vintage papers on here. These are some papers that I actually have available on my website. That website is called chosenandcrafting.com. I'll have the link for that in the description. But these are some leftover pieces that I have, and this is incidentally my carryover item from last week. So I did a little bit of these collaging pieces last week, and so I just wanted to carry those over to this week just for a good kind of substrate for my little project today. So I have this beautiful German, like Gothic type font, and then a couple pages from an old almanac. And so it's really interesting because, you know, some of the textures of the papers just respond differently. Like you can see how that one is just really very slippery for some reason. It just did not want to stick down, and it all goes to kind of the texture of the papers, which is why it's so fun to use these types of papers in these types of projects, at least in my opinion, because they just all react differently to the medium that you put over the top of it. So I started out with a layer of matte medium, and then as I was gluing things down, just making sure to add another layer of that over the top to kind of protect and seal everything for all of the additional layers, which I'm going to be adding. So this next layer is some white gesso. This is actually just a wash of gesso. I'm doing a very thin coat here. And then I'm going to dry that. And you can see I've left all the edges on here. I'm going to come and tear those off here in just one second. But I'm going to dry this first layer. I'm going to tear off those edges, but I did leave them rough. I really just like the look of that. I'm going to add another layer, slightly thicker. If people ask all the time, like why you would put paint over layers, but you can actually see, even in the finished card, you can see all of those layers in the background, and it just adds a neat texture. Now, I apologize. I thought I had pressed record and I did not, but you sort of missed me adding the crazy colors. So what I was using here are some acrylic inks by Amsterdam, and these are Quinacridone Rose and Naples Yellow Deep, and they just really do fun things, especially when you apply them over gesso or a non-porous surface, because they kind of react almost like watercolor, and that you can mix them. And so that's really what I did, is I just kind of dropped them by the dropper full onto my card, sprayed some water, moved it all around, dried it, and let it kind of just do its own thing, and then let it dry. And in the process of that, there was like this one little section that just naturally looked like a heart, and I thought it would be perfect for the word, especially that I'm going to be using, which is my constant item. But I started out by just like, my intention was just to kind of trace the natural heart that was in the background, and then I hated it. And so I am going to go through here, and you'll see me fiddle with this quite a bit, trying to fix what I have done here. I started out, I think, with a pen that was just too bold, the nib of it, and so it just really made me not like it. And then I tried to cover it up with some of the pinks that kind of matched. I pulled out some yellows. You can see that stack over there. I was like, maybe I'll just try to cover it up. And then while I was thinking about how to do that, I just started doing all of my little mark making. So I took another paint pen. These are Poscas. These are my favorite paint pens. And I did a little border, just adding some little doodly bits, adding some dots both in the heart and on either side of it. And then I realized that that paint was still wet, and so just took a paper towel to kind of take up some of that black paint, and tried again to really get this heart to be the kind of shape and the look that I wanted it. I wanted it to look wonky, but but not like kindergarten wonky, if that makes if that makes any sense. I just wasn't happy with it. So you can see again, I'm just going to be messing around with this. So again, my word for this week comes from my Word Study Wednesday, which is hearken, and it talks a lot about, listening and obeying, and really it's just kind of a posture of your heart, is being willing to obey. And so that's kind of where I was thinking my brain was going when I was doing all of this. And so this process is one of the reasons why I really enjoy kind of doing these separately, because this next day, I'm just really kind of going back over the verse that I used for this, and just contemplating more on this word hearken and what it means to really listen with the intent to obey and those kinds of things. So what you saw me do there is I have some washi tape that looks like it has some mark making on it. And so I added some of that behind my word, which is just from a Dymo label maker. That's going to be my constant item all throughout this full deck series. And then I added it in a couple more places around my card just for continuity. I did go up a little bit over the heart in hopes that that would maybe help balance it. And then I went in with some white. Again, all of this is really just to try to fix the fact that I just do not like the way that this heart looks. And so then I'm going to add a little bit more just kind of mark making with this white Posca pen in the background, just some little dots and dashes and things in the background, nothing super major. And then I brought out my Stabilo pencil just for kind of another layer of black in the background that's not so stark as a paint pen, but just some other little marks, and also to kind of bring those dashes from the washi it kind of into the background as well. So just very random, just kind of intuitively making marks wherever it felt necessary. And then adding some more white, just going back and forth here. This is actually my favorite part. I really love this prompt of black mark making because you can really kind of get lost in what you're doing, and it really gives you the time, especially the way that I'm doing these, like to really just contemplate and think about, you know, the word and the verse, like I said. And so that's what I'm doing. And then again, one more time, trying to just fix this heart. And, you know, I thought about just leaving it and, you know, just being like, well, I hate it and it's just going to be what it is for this week. And then I couldn't do that either. So I'm still going back and forth. I'm like, well, maybe let me add some more white dots here and white mark making, and just let me think about this for a minute. So this is kind of all what's happening in my head as I'm going through this. This is where I'm like trying to decide, should I just leave it and move on? I didn't want to do anything with the cool background. I really didn't want to cover all of that up. So I could have added more layers and different things in the background, but I really liked the background. And so what I decided to do is just take a scrap piece of black cardstock and I cut out a heart, and I'm just going to glue it right over that, which kind of makes me sad because the whole point was that the ink itself had made that heart initially. But I just couldn't deal with it. So I just glued down a cardstock heart over the top of it, and I'm just going to do a little bit of mark making with the white Posca paint pen here. Just some little lines and dashes again, and some dots just to give that heart a little bit more character and dimension and pull everything together. But that just made me much happier. So then I did go around the outside of this heart with my Stabilo pencil, and then activated that with some water just to kind of give it a little bit of a shadow, so it gives it some dimension. And then I'm actually pulling some of that right from the pencil, and then I will actually go around, and those marks that I made earlier, I'm just going to very carefully add a little bit of water to those. It's just going to make them a little bit more bold than just the pencil would. So but just kind of as a finishing touch, just in a few places to really make those just a little bit more bold. And so that is pretty much going to be the end of it, though, for me. I'm going to leave it just like it is at this point. I'm pretty happy with it, even though I had to recover from that heart. So anyway, if you liked this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, bye.